in the shadowed corridors of history, where emperors rose and fell like the tides of the Tiber, one man stands as a beacon of unyielding resilience: Marcus Aurelius. He wasn't just a ruler of the vast Roman Empire, he was a philosopher-king, a Stoic sage whose life was a testament to the power of the human spirit. Today, we're diving deep into 6 times Marcus Aurelius turned crushing failure into power. This isn't just a recounting of ancient tales, it's a blueprint for your own life, a Stoic guide to transforming adversity into unbreakable strength. Imagine facing plagues that decimate your people, betrayals from those you trust, personal losses that shatter your heart, and military defeats that threaten your legacy. Marcus didn't crumble. He forged himself anew in the fires of failure. Through reflection, unwavering ethics, learning from mistakes, persiste duty, compassion even for enemies, and preserving his core essence, he turned every setback into a stepping stone. As we explore these 6 pivotal moments, ask yourself, are you ready to let karma work its course, staying silent in the storm while building your inner empire? Let's start by understanding the man behind the myth. Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, born in 121 AD, into a prominent Roman family, ascended to the throne in 161 AD as co-emperor with Lucius Verus, and later ruled alone until his death in 180 AD. He wasn't born to power, he was chosen for it by Emperor Hadrian, who saw in him the qualities of a true leader. But Marcus's true legacy isn't in his conquests or the Pax Romana he helped maintain in his private writings. The Meditations, a series of personal reflections scribbled in Greek during grueling military campaigns. These weren't meant for publication, they were his Stoic journal. A raw dialogue with himself on virtue, mortality, and the art of living well amid chaos. Influenced by Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, Marcus embodied Stoicism's core tenets: focus on what you can control, accept what you can't, and act with justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom. Stoicism, at its heart, isn't about passive endurance, it's about active transformation. It's the philosophy that teaches us failure isn't a dead end, it's a detour to greater wisdom. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't fluffy motivation, it's battle-tested truth from a man who ruled an empire spanning from Britain to Egypt, all while grappling with internal and external turmoil. In our modern world, where failures bombard us, lost jobs, broken relationships, health crises, or global uncertainties, Marcus's example shines brighter than ever. He shows us that power isn't in avoiding failure, it's in alchemizing it into purpose. By staying silent, meaning not reacting impulsively and letting karma, or the natural consequences of actions, unfold, we prepare ourselves for true growth. But are you prepared? As we unpack these 6 failures, you'll see how Marcus applied Stoic principles to emerge stronger, and how you can do the same. First, we'll confront the Antonine Plague, a devastating pandemic that ravaged the empire, killing millions and testing Marcus's leadership to its core. This wasn't just a health crisis, it was a failure of containment, economy, and morale. Yet, through deep self-reflection and a commitment to duty, Marcus turned this catastrophe into a renewed sense of purpose, reminding us that even in the face of uncontrollable forces, ou réponse des fins, us. Next, the heart-wrenching personal losses in his family, the deaths of his beloved wife Faustina and several of his children, In an era without modern medicine, grief was a constant companion for Marcus. This failure struck at his most vulnerable spot, yet he transformed it into resilience by learning from the pain, maintaining compassion, and not losing his essence as a Stoic. Then, the early setbacks in the Marcomannic Wars, brutal conflicts along the Danube frontier, where initial defeats cost lives and territory. Military failure could have eroded his authority, but Marcus learned from mistakes, persisted in his duties, and converted defeat into strategic mastery. Proving that perseverance in virtue trumps temporary victories, the rebellion of Avidius Cassius, a trusted general who declared himself emperor in a shocking betrayal, follows. This internal threat could have sparked vengeance and division, but Marcus forged forgiveness from it, showing compassion to his enemy and reflecting to strengthen his own rule. We can't overlook Marcus's chronic health struggles plagued by ailments that weakened his body but not his spirit. In a time when emperors projected invincibility, this personal failure became a forge for inner strength, as he upheld ethics and duty despite physical frailty. Finally, the succession crisis with his son Commodus, whose reign would later unravel much of Marcus's work. This failure in legacy building haunted him, yet through reflection and not abandoning his principles, Marcus offers a profound lesson on accepting outcomes while staying true to oneself. These aren't isolated incidents. They're interconnected threads in the tapestry of a life lived stoically. Marcus didn't seek failure. He met it head-on, using it as fuel. In Meditations, he reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This video isn't just history, it's a call to action. As you watch, reflect on your own failures. Have you let them crush you, or have you turned them into power? Stay with me as we delve into each one, drawing timeless lessons to fortify your life. Remember, in the Stoic view, every failure is an opportunity to practice virtue. Let's begin with the first, the Antonine Plague, where death swept through Rome. But Marcus emerged with unbreakable purpose. Why does this matter today? In our fast-paced, uncertain world, echoing the chaos of ancient Rome, we face our own plagues, pandemics like COVID-19, economic downturns, or personal crises. Marcus teaches us to stay silent amid the noise, letting the natural order, what some call karma, work, while we focus on our response. He didn't rant against the gods or fate. He reflected, asking, what can I learn? How can I serve? This mindset shifts failure from a burden to a teacher. As Epictetus, his mentor, said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Marcus lived this, turning empire-wide devastation into personal and societal growth. Picture this. It's the late 162nd AD. Soldiers, returning from the Parthian War, bring back not just victory, but a deadly virus, likely smallpox or measles that spreads like wildfire. Estimates suggest it killed up to 5 million people, a third of the empire's population in some areas. Cities emptied, armies weakened, trade halted. For Marcus, this was a colossal failure. As emperor, protecting his people was his duty. Yet, instead of despair, he turned inward. In Meditations Book 6, he writes, to bear this worthily is good fortune. He reflected on mortality, accepting the plague as part of nature's indifference, not a personal attack. This reflection fueled his actions. He funded funerals, supported orphans, and even sold imperial treasures to aid recovery. His ethics remained intact, no scapegoating, no shortcuts. He learned from the failure by improving hygiene in camps and consulting physicians, showing that knowledge from adversity builds power. But Marcus went further. He practiced compassion. Even as the plague claimed his co-emperor Lucius Verus in 169 AD, he didn't lash out. Instead, he honored him and continued serving. This persistence in duty, Stoicism's prohairesis, or moral choice, turned the failure into strength. The empire stabilized, and Marcus's reputation as a just ruler grew. For us, think of a job loss or health scare. Stay silent. Don't blame others impulsively. Let karma, the consequences, unfold while you reflect. What can I control? My attitude, my actions. Learn. Persist. Be compassionate. This is how failure becomes power. As we transition to the first failure in detail, hold this hook. Marcus didn't just survive. He thrived because he understood that true power lies within. Are you prepared to do the same? Let's explore how the Antonine Plague became his crucible. Imagine the year 165 AD, the Roman Empire, at the height of its glory under Marcus Aurelius, is suddenly gripped by an invisible enemy far deadlier than any barbarian horde. Soldiers returning triumphant from the Parthian War in the east carry back not just spoils, but a virulent plague. Historians believe it was smallpox or measles that sweeps through the legions. Cities and countrysides like a merciless scythe. This was the Antonine Plague, named after Marcus's family line, a catastrophe that would claim between 5 to 10 million lives over the next 15 years, decimating up to a third of the population. In some regions, armies were crippled, with entire units wiped out. Trade routes emptied as fear paralyzed commerce, and the economy teetered on collapse. Bodies piled in the streets of Rome, and the air thickened with the wail of mourners and the stench of death. For Marcus, this wasn't merely a public health crisis, it was a profound failure of leadership. As emperor, his sacred duty was to protect and preserve the empire's vitality. How could the gods or fate allow such devastation under his watch? Yet, in this crucible of suffering, Marcus didn't succumb to despair or rage. He turned the pandemic into purpose, embodying Stoic principles that transformed collective failure into personal and imperial power. Through self-reflection, unwavering ethics, learning from the chaos, persistent fulfillment of duty, compassion for the afflicted, and preserving his inner essence, he emerged not broken, but unbreakable. This is the first of our 6 stories. How Marcus Aurelius alchemized a plague into a pathway to deeper wisdom and resilience. To grasp the magnitude, picture Rome's forums, once bustling with merchants and philosophers, now eerie ghost towns. The plague struck indiscriminately rich and poor, soldier and slave. It even claimed Marcus's co-emperor and adopted brother, Lucius Verus, in 169 AD, leaving Marcus to shoulder the burden alone. Military campaigns ground to a halt as troops fell ill, and the empire's borders weakened, inviting invasions from Germanic tribes. This failure tested every fiber of Marcus's being. In his meditations, written amid the turmoil, he reflects, what is it that is able to conduct a man? One thing, and only one, philosophy. And this consists in keeping the daemon within a man free from violence and unharmed, superior to pains and pleasures. Here, Marcus engages in profound self-reflection, the cornerstone of Stoicism. He didn't blame external forces impulsively. Instead, he turned inward, questioning his own responses. Was he prepared for such unpredictability? Reflection allowed him to accept the plague as part of the natural order, what Stoics call the logos, the rational structure of the universe, by staying silent in the face of panic, meaning not reacting with knee-jerk decrees or scapegoating. He let the consequences unfold while focusing on what he could control, his mindset and actions. This reflection fueled ethical steadfastness. Marcus could have resorted to draconian measures, quarantines enforced by terror, or exploiting the crisis for personal gain, but he upheld virtue above all. He organized state-funded funerals for the poor, ensuring dignified burials when families couldn't afford them. He sold off imperial luxuries, gold vessels, silk robes, even his wife Faustina's jewelry to finance relief efforts and grain distributions. In Meditations Book 1, he thanks the gods for teaching him not to be led astray by sophists, and not to write on speculations or to deliver little exhortations. His ethics shone in refusing to compromise justice. He didn't persecute minorities or spread misinformation. This moral anchor turned failure into power, as the people saw in him not a faltering ruler, but a beacon of integrity. Learning from the mistake of initial unpreparedness, Marcus consulted physicians like Galen, who advanced medical knowledge during the crisis. He improved sanitation in military camps, mandated better hygiene, and integrated lessons into governance. Stoicism teaches that errors are teachers. Reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears. Marcus wrote, by analyzing the failure, why did the plague spread so fast? How could logistics adapt? He built a more resilient empire. Persistence in duty was Marcus's unbreakable shield. Amid the death toll, he didn't retreat to his palaces. He toured affected areas, rallied the Senate, and maintained administrative functions. Even as the plague ravaged his own health, he suffered recurring symptoms. He pressed on with reforms, like tax relief for stricken provinces. This echoes Epictetus's teaching, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. Marcus's duty wasn't ego-driven, it was service to the common good. He viewed the emperor's role as a shepherd, not a tyrant, persisting because virtue demands it. Compassion, too, defined his response. Rather than hardening his heart, he extended mercy even to deserters weakened by illness, offering amnesty to bolster morale. In Meditations Book 9, he reminds himself, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. This from benevolence approach fostered unity. Enemies became allies in survival. Finally, he preserved his essence, not letting the failure erode his stoic core. Death surrounded him, yet he meditated on impermanence. Soon you'll be ashes or bones, a mere name at most. And even that is just a sound, anechu. This detachment empowered him, turning personal grief into universal empathy. The Antonine Plague didn't end Marcus's reign. It refined it. By 180 AD, the empire had recovered remarkably, with strengthened institutions and a leader revered as the philosopher. His power wasn't in conquering the disease, but in mastering himself amid it. Today, this resonates profoundly. Think of the COVID-19 pandemic, lockdowns, losses, uncertainty. Many lashed out, blaming governments or fate. But applying Marcus's method, reflect. What can I control? My habits, my kindness, uphold ethics, help neighbors, avoid hoarding, learn, adapt work, health practices, persist in duties, support family, community, show compassion, forgive those struggling, preserve your essence. Don't let fear change who you are. In doing so, you turn crisis into purpose, just as Marcus did. This failure wasn't karma's punishment, but its workshop. By staying silent, observing without frenzy, Marcus let natural consequences teach, emerging with power, born of wisdom. As we move to his personal family losses, remember, every plague in your life is an invitation to stoic growth. Are you prepared to accept it? In the quiet chambers of the imperial palace, where the weight of an empire pressed upon his shoulders, Marcus Aurelius faced a failure more intimate and piercing than any battlefield defeat: the relentless loss of his family. Over his lifetime, he and his wife Faustina bore 13 children, but tragedy claimed 8 of them before they reached adulthood, infants succumbing to illness, young heirs lost to the whims of fate. The crowning blow came in 175 AD, when Faustina herself died during a military campaign in the East, leaving Marcus widowed at 54. In an age without antibiotics or advanced medicine, death was a familiar spectre. But for Marcus, these personal devastations weren't abstract statistics. They were soul, deep wounds that threatened to unravel his stoic composure. Grief could have consumed him, turning the philosopher-king into a broken man, bitter against the gods or withdrawn from duty. Yet, Marcus transformed this crushing failure into profound resilience, drawing on stoic wisdom to reflect deeply, uphold his ethics, learn from the pain, persist in his responsibilities, extend compassion even to himself, and preserve the unshakable essence of his character. This is our second story: how Marcus Aurelius turned familial heartbreak into an inner fortress, proving that true power arises not from avoiding loss, but from embracing it as a teacher. To truly feel the depth of this failure, envision Marcus's world. As emperor, his life was a whirlwind of state affairs, wars on the frontiers, administrative reforms, philosophical musings jotted in tent camps. But family was his anchor. Faustina, married to him in 145 AD, was more than a consort. She was a partner in his stoic journey, bearing the burdens of empire alongside him. Their children represented hope for continuity, a legacy beyond marble monuments. Yet, one by one, they slipped away. Twin sons dying in infancy, daughters perishing young. His beloved son Verissimus lost at age 7 to a tumor. Historians note Marcus's profound sorrow. In letters and inscriptions, he mourned openly, a rarity for Roman Stoics who prized emotional restraint. Faustina's death, amid the Parthian campaigns, compounded it. Rumors swirled of her infidelity or involvement in plots, but Marcus honored her memory, deifying her and establishing charitable foundations in her name. This cascade of losses was a failure on multiple levels. As a father, he couldn't protect his bloodline. As a husband, he grappled with absence. As a leader, it exposed his vulnerability, potentially weakening his authority in a culture that equated personal strength with divine favor. Marcus's response began with self-reflection, the Stoics' most potent tool. In Meditations, Book 8, he writes, "Remember that neither the future nor the past pains thee, but only the present. But this is reduced to a very little, if thou only circumscribest it, and chidest thy mind, if it is unable to hold out against even this." He didn't deny the grief, he dissected it, questioning why loss hurt so deeply. Was it attachment to the impermanent? Reflection revealed that suffering stemmed from expectations, clinging to what fate could snatch away. By staying silent in his mourning, not railing publicly against injustice, he allowed karma, the natural cycle of cause and effect, to work. He accepted death as part of the cosmos's indifference, not a targeted curse. This inward turn preserved his sanity, turning raw emotion into clarity. Upholding ethics amid grief, was non-negotiable for Marcus. He could have lashed out, blaming physicians or fate, or retreated into isolation, neglecting the empire. Instead, he channeled sorrow into virtuous action. After Faustina's death, he founded the New Girls of Faustina, a charity for orphaned girls. Mirroring her compassion, his ethics demanded justice and temperance. He didn't let loss breed cynicism. In Book 1 of Meditations, he credits his adoptive father Antoninus for teaching him to endure pain and to be long-suffering. This moral compass turned failure into power. By acting ethically, he honored the dead, strengthening his resolve and inspiring loyalty among his subjects. Learning from the mistakes embedded in these losses was crucial. Marcus recognized his error in over-attachment, a Stoic vice. He had invested too much hope in fragile human bonds, ignoring Epictetus's warning, "Never say of anything, 'I have lost it,' but 'I have returned it.' From each child's death, he learned to value the present, detaching from outcomes. Faustina's passing taught him about rumors and forgiveness. Despite salacious gossip from later historians like Cassius Dio, Marcus focused on her virtues, learning to discern truth from noise. This adaptive learning rebuilt him, making his philosophy more robust. Failure became a forge for wisdom. Persistence in duty anchored him through the storm. Even as grief clawed at him, Marcus continued his campaigns against the Marcomanni, reformed laws, and governed justly. He viewed fatherhood and husbandry as roles within his broader duty to the common good. In Book 6, "Do the things external which fall upon thee distract thee. Give thyself time to learn something new and good, and cease to be whirled around." He persisted because Stoicism demands action aligned with virtue, not evasion. Compassion extended this resilience. He was kind to himself, allowing private mourning, and to others, offering solace to bereaved families empire-wide. Book 11 urges, "Adapt thyself to the things with which thy lot has been cast." His compassion wasn't weakness, it was strength, fostering empathy that unified a fractured realm. Above all, Marcus preserved his essence, refusing to let loss erode his Stoic core. He remained the philosopher-king, meditating on transience. Time is like a river made up of the events which happen, and a violent stream. For as soon as a thing has been seen, it is carried away. This detachment didn't numb him, it empowered him to love more freely, knowing nothing lasts. By not losing his identity to grief, he turned personal failure into universal resilience. Marcus's family losses didn't diminish his legacy, they enriched it. His surviving son, Commodus, inherited the throne. But Marcus's true heir was his philosophy, enduring through meditations. Today, in a world of sudden bereavements, losing loved ones to accidents, illness, or estrangement, we can apply this. Reflect on your pain. Is it the loss or your resistance? Uphold ethics. Honor memories through good deeds. Learn. Detach from expectations. Persist. Fulfill roles despite hard-touch. Show compassion to yourself and others. Preserve essence. Stay true amid change. Thus, grief becomes resilience. Failure becomes power. As we shift to the military setbacks of the Marcomannic Wars, carry this lesson. Loss is inevitable, but how you transform it defines your strength. Are you prepared to build from the ruins? On the frozen banks of the Danube River, where the winds howled like vengeful spirits and the ground trembled under barbarian hordes, Marcus Aurelius confronted a failure that shook the foundations of his empire. The early setbacks in the Marcomannic Wars Beginning in 166 AD and raging intermittently until his death in 180 AD, these conflicts pitted Rome against a coalition of Germanic tribes, the Marcomanni, Quadi, and others who surged across the frontiers, pillaging provinces and slaughtering legions. Initial defeats were catastrophic. In 168 AD, the tribes breached the defences, devastating Aquileia in northern Italy, the first invasion of the Italian peninsula in over a century. Roman armies, already weakened by the Antonine Plague, suffered humiliating losses, thousands dead, supply lines severed, morale shattered. For Marcus, this wasn't just a military blunder, it was a profound leadership failure. As emperor and commander-in-chief, he bore responsibility for strategic miscalculations, underestimating the enemy's ferocity and the plague's toll on troops. Doubt crept in. Was his philosophical life ill-suited for the brutal realities of war? Yet, from these crushing defeats, Marcus forged strategic mastery, applying Stoic principles to reflect profoundly, maintain unyielding ethics, learn rigorously from errors, persist in sacred duties, show compassion to foes and allies alike, and safeguard his inner essence. This is our third tale, how Marcus Aurelius converted battlefield humiliation into enduring power, reminding us that true victory lies not in conquest, but in self-conquest. To immerse yourself in this failure's grit, imagine the scene. Marcus, far from Rome's marble splendor, encamped in muddy trenches along the frontier. The wars erupted as opportunistic tribes exploited Rome's plague-weakened state, launching raids that caught the legions off guard. Early campaigns faltered. Lucius Verus's initial efforts yielded mixed results. But after his death in 169 AD, Marcus took personal command, marching north at 48 years old. Despite his frail health, defeats mounted. Ambushes decimated cohorts, harsh winters claimed more lives than swords, and tribal alliances outmaneuvered Roman tactics. Historians like Cassius Dio record the panic in Rome. Refugees flooded the city, senators whispered of omens, and the empire teetered on collapse. For Marcus, this was a test of his Stoic resolve. War exposed the limits of control, where fate's dice rolled unpredictably. In Meditations Book 2, penned amid the chaos, he reflects, "Say to yourself in the early morning, I shall meet today, inquisitive, ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious, incharitable men. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil." This self-reflection was his anchor. He didn't blame subordinates or curse the gods. He examined his own preparations. Had he anticipated the tribe's unity, reflection stripped away illusions, accepting defeats as natural consequences, allowing karma, the impartial flow of actions and reactions, to unfold without impulsive retaliation. Ethics remained his guiding star, undimmed by desperation. Marcus could have unleashed total war, enslaving populations, scorching earth, or bribing traitors. Instead, he upheld justice, treating captives humanely and negotiating when possible. He reformed the army ethically, promoting based on merit, not favoritism, and ensured fair pay despite strained coffers. In Book 3, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. His ethics turned potential tyranny into principled leadership, earning respect even from enemies. Learning from mistakes was methodical and relentless. Early setbacks revealed flaws: over-reliance on heavy infantry against mobile foes, poor intelligence, plague-disrupted logistics. Marcus adapted, integrating auxiliary forces, fortifying borders with the Danube limes, and innovating tactics like river flotillas. Stoicism views errors as educators. The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, he wrote in Book 7, emphasizing adaptation over rigidity. By dissecting defeats post-battle reviews, consulting generals, he transformed tactical failures into strategic evolution, ultimately pushing the tribes back. Persistence in duty defined his campaign. Years on the frontier, away from family and comfort, could have broken lesser men. Marcus endured, leading charges, enduring sieges, and governing from horseback. His duty wasn't glory-seeking, it was service to Rome's stability. Epictetus's influence echoed, "Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself." Even as losses mounted, he persisted in reforms, expanding citizenship, strengthening alliances, because virtue demands constancy. Compassion wove through this persistence. He offered terms to defeated tribes, integrating them as foederati rather than exterminating them. In Book 9, kindness is invincible, provided it's sincere. This mercy wasn't naivety, it disarmed hostility, turning enemies into reluctant partners and bolstering long-term peace. Finally, he preserved his essence, refusing to let war's brutality corrode his soul. Amid carnage, he meditated nightly. Do not be whirled about, but in every movement have respect to justice, and on the occasion of every impression maintain the faculty of comprehension. Detachment from outcomes kept him centered. Victories were temporary. But inné virtu éternelle. These early setbacks didn't doom Marcus, they elevated him. By 175 AD, he had stabilized the front, securing treaties that held for years. His rain miracle, a legendary storm saving his troops, symbolized resilience, though Marcus credited providence, not magic. The wars honed his philosophy, making meditations a warrior's manual. In our era of professional failures, project flops, career stalls, or team defeats, Marcus's blueprint applies. Reflect. What missteps led here? Uphold ethics. Avoid shortcuts. Learn. Analyze and adapt. Persist. Fulfill roles unwaveringly. Show compassion. To colleagues and competitors, preserve essence. Don't let setbacks define you. Thus, defeat becomes mastery. Echoing his words, what stands in the way becomes the way. As we advance to the betrayal of Avidius Cassius, hold this truth. Military failures forge the sharpest strategies when met with stoic grace. Are you prepared to turn your battles into triumphs? In the sun-baked provinces of the Eastern Empire, where whispers of ambition echoed through marble halls and desert winds carried secrets of unrest, Marcus Aurelius faced a failure that struck at the heart of trust and loyalty, the rebellion of Avidius Cassius. In 175 AD, amid the ongoing Marcomannic Wars and the lingering shadows of the Antonine Plague, false rumors of Marcus's death spread like wildfire. Avidius Cassius, a trusted general and governor of Syria, hand-picked by Marcus for his valor in the Parthian campaigns, seized the moment, proclaiming himself emperor with the support of legions in Egypt and the East. This wasn't a distant barbarian uprising, it was betrayal from within, a dagger thrust by a man Marcus had elevated, potentially fracturing the empire into civil war. Armies mobilised, alliances wavered, and Rome held its breath as the specter of internal collapse loomed. For Marcus, this was a devastating leadership failure. His judgment in allies questioned, his authority challenged, and the unity he had painstakingly built threatened to crumble. Doubt assailed him had his stoic ideals blinded him to human ambition. Yet, from this searing betrayal, Marcus forged forgiveness into unassailable power, wielding reflection, ethical fortitude, lessons from misjudgment, dutiful persistence, profound compassion for his enemy, and an unwavering preservation of his noble essence. This is our fourth narrative, how Marcus Aurelius transmuted treachery into triumph, teaching us that the greatest power emerges not from vengeance, but from virtuous restraint. To capture the sting of this failure, transport yourself to the imperial tent on the Danube frontier. Marcus, already weathered by years of war and personal grief, receives word of the uprising while battling Germanic tribes. Avidus, a Roman of Egyptian-Greek descent, wasn't a mere subordinate, he was a comrade in arms, commended in dispatches for crushing Parthian forces. The rebellion exploited chaos, with Marcus far north. The east rallied to Avidius, minting coins in his image and swearing oaths of fealty. Historians like Cassius Dio detail the shock senators in Rome panicked, fearing a repeat of the Year of the Four Emperors. This failure pierced Marcus deeply. It exposed vulnerabilities in his rule, where philosophy met politics. In Meditations Book 4, he contemplates such trials. If thou art pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs thee, but thy own judgment about it, and it is in thy power to wipe out this judgment now. Self-reflection became his refuge. He didn't erupt in fury or hasty marches. He paused, examining his role. Had he overlooked signs of discontent? Reflection revealed the betrayal as a mirror to human nature, ambition's frailty, not personal malice. By staying silent amid the clamor, not issuing immediate condemnations, he let karma's wheel turn, observing consequences without ego-driven interference. This inward gaze transformed pain into perspective, affirming that true threats lie within our reactions, not events. Ethics anchored him against the tide of retribution. In an era where emperors crushed rebellions with crucifixions and purges, Marcus chose virtue over vengeance. He dispatched letters urging peaceful resolution, offering amnesty if Avidius surrendered. Even as he mobilized forces under Pompeianus, his ethics demanded justice, tempered by mercy, no preemptive strikes on innocence, no exploitation of the crisis for power grabs. Book 1 of Meditations praises his mentors for instilling mildness with dignity and to obtain what was necessary without being overbearing. This ethical stance turned a potential bloodbath into a measured response, preserving the empire's moral fabric and enhancing his stature as a just ruler. Learning from the misjudgment was swift and profound. Marcus recognized his error in over-trusting without safeguards, underestimating rumor mills in a vast empire. He adapted by strengthening communication networks, appointing more vigilant overseers, and integrating lessons into governance, fostering loyalty through shared purpose rather than fear. Stoicism frames mistakes as catalysts. Our life is what our thoughts make it, he noted in Book 4. By analyzing the betrayal, why did false news spread unchecked? He evolved his leadership, preventing future fractures. Persistence in duty propelled him forward. The rebellion interrupted critical wars, yet Marcus didn't falter. He continued frontier defenses while addressing the East, embodying the Stoic call to action. His duty extended beyond self-preservation to the empire's welfare, viewing the throne as a burden of service. As Epictetus taught, seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life. Marcus persisted in diplomatic overtures, even as armies clashed briefly. Compassion, remarkably, defined his apex of strength. Upon Avidius's assassination by his own officers, mere months into the revolt, Marcus expressed genuine sorrow, refusing to celebrate or punish the family. He pardoned conspirators, integrating them back, and visited the East to heal divisions without reprisals. In Book 9, to do harm is to do yourself harm. To fail in benefiting is to fail yourself. This compassion disarmed enmity, converting potential foes into loyalists and showcasing power through forgiveness, not force. Preserving his essence ensured the betrayal didn't scar his soul. Amid whispers of weakness, Marcus remained the philosopher-king, meditating on universality. All men are made one for another. Either then teach them better or bear with them. From Book 8, he didn't descend into paranoia or cynicism. Detachment from personal affront kept his core intact, virtue over victory. This inner preservation radiated outward, solidifying his legacy. The rebellion's swift end didn't erase the failure. It amplified Marcus's wisdom. By 176 AD, unity restored. He returned to Rome for a triumph, but his true conquest was internal. In modern betrayals, workplace backstabs, broken friendships, or public scandals emulate him. Reflect to reframe pain. Uphold ethics, avoiding retaliation. Learn to fortify trusts. Persist in your path. Extend compassion, healing rifts. Preserve your essence, emerging unscathed. Thus, betrayal becomes a forge for forgiveness, yielding unbreakable power. As we turn to his chronic health struggles, remember, forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's freeing yourself to rise. Are you prepared to release the chains of betrayal? In the dim glow of oil lamps, within the confines of his campaign tent or the echoing halls of the Palatine, Marcus Aurelius waged a silent war, not against external foes, but against the frailty of his own body. Throughout his adult life, particularly intensifying during his reign from 161 to 180 AD, Marcus battled chronic health issues that gnawed at his physical vitality. Recurrent stomach ailments, possibly ulcers or digestive disorders, chest pains suggestive of respiratory problems, and the lingering effects of the Antonine Plague that left him weakened and prone to infections. Ancient sources like the Historia Augusta describe him as frail, often unable to eat without pain, relying on theriac, an ancient antidote, and enduring sleepless nights. In an empire that idolized the robust, godlike emperor, think of Augustus's vigor or Trajan's conquests. Marcus's ailments represented a profound personal failure. As the embodiment of Roman strength, his body betrayed him, limiting his ability to lead charges, endure long marches, or project invincibility to his troops and subjects. Whispers of weakness could erode authority, inviting challenges from rivals or despair among allies. Yet, from this relentless physical erosion, Marcus built an indomitable inner strength, harnessing Stoic principles to reflect introspectively, uphold rigorous ethics, learn from bodily limitations, persist in imperial duties, extend compassion to his suffering self and others, and fiercely preserve the essence of his philosophical soul. This is our fifth chronicle, how Marcus Aurelius transfigured bodily frailty into spiritual fortitude, illuminating that true power resides not in the flesh, but in the unyielding mind. To embody the intimacy of this failure, envision Marcus at the height of the Marcomannic Wars, around 170 AD, hunched over his writings as pain twists his gut like a vice. From youth, he suffered adopted by Antoninus Pius. He was groomed for rule, but his constitution was delicate. Exacerbated by the stresses of command, the plague likely scarred his lungs, and campaigns exposed him to harsh elements, freezing Danubian winters, dusty eastern marches. Galen, his personal physician, prescribed regimens, but relief was fleeting. This wasn't mere inconvenience, it was a failure that permeated every decision. How could he inspire legions when fatigue sapped his energy? In Meditations, Book 5. Composed during these trials, he reflects, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Self-reflection was his first weapon. He didn't curse his body or seek miraculous cures. He examined the divide between body and mind. Why did pain dominate? Reflection taught him that suffering was amplified by resistance. Acceptance diminished it. By staying silent in his agony, not complaining to aides or using illness as excuse, he allowed karma's impartial balance to prevail, focusing on controllable responses. This stoic introspection turned vulnerability into insight, affirming that the body is a vessel, the mind its captain. Ethics formed the bedrock of his endurance. Marcus could have indulged in excess opium for pain, delegation to evade strain, or hidden his frailty behind facades. Instead, he embodied temperance and justice, refusing palliatives that clouded judgment and fulfilling roles without compromise. In Book 10, bear in mind that every man lives only this present time, which is an indivisible point, and that all the rest of his life is either past or it is uncertain. His ethics demanded transparency. He led by example, sharing hardships with soldiers, boosting morale through shared adversity. This moral integrity converted weakness into relational power. Troops revered his grit, seeing virtue in vulnerability. Learning from the limitations was adaptive and profound. Each flare-up revealed lessons. Overexertion worsened symptoms, so he honed efficiency, delegating wisely, prioritizing rest without idleness. Galen's treatments advanced his understanding of anatomy, but stoically he learned detachment. Thou must now at last perceive of what universe thou art a part. From Book 2, mistakes like ignoring early warnings taught balance, refining his philosophy into a practical toolkit for resilience. Persistence in duty was Marcus's defiant roar against debility. Illness didn't deter him from the frontier. He commanded for over a decade, enacting reforms like legal protections for slaves and economic stabilizers. His persistence stemmed from stoic duty prohairesis, the commitment to virtue regardless of circumstance. Epictetus, his guide, asserted, "Lameness is an impediment to the leg, but not to the will." Marcus lived this, rising daily to govern. Even when pain whispered surrender, compassion deepened this persistence. He was gentle with himself, acknowledging limits without self-pity, and empathetic to the afflicted, funding medical care for plague victims, advocating humane treatment. In Book 7, be like the promontory against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. His compassion extended outward, viewing illness as a shared human condition, fostering policies that aided the weak and turning personal struggle into communal uplift. Preserving his essence ensured that frailty didn't fracture his core. Amid physical decay, Marcus remained the sage, meditating on mortality. Think of thyself as dead. Thou hast lived thy life. Now, take what's left and live it properly. From Book 7, he didn't let ailments breed bitterness or doubt. Detachment preserved his rationality, justice, and wisdom. This inner sanctuary amplified his power, while the body waned. The spirit soared. Authoring Meditations as a testament to transcendence, Marcus's health struggles didn't shorten his impact. They amplified it. dying at 58-inch window bona. He left an empire intact and a philosophy eternal. In today's world of chronic conditions, autoimmune diseases, mental health battles, or aging's toll, his model empowers: reflect on your pains. Are they the affliction or your judgment? Uphold ethics. Endure without shortcuts. Learn. Adapt habits for sustainability. Persist. Honor commitments despite hurdles. Show compassion to your body and others. Preserve essence. Let weakness reveal your strength. Thus, physical failure becomes inner might, proving the Stoic truth. The mind conquers all. As we approach the final failure with Commodus, embrace this. Your body's limits are invitations to boundless mental power. Are you prepared to build from within? In the twilight of his reign, as the sands of time slipped inexorably through his fingers, Marcus Aurelius grappled with a failure that echoed beyond his lifetime, the succession crisis embodied by his son and heir, Commodus. Born in 161 AD, the same year Marcus ascended to the throne, Commodus was groomed from youth to inherit the empire, receiving the finest education in philosophy, rhetoric, and martial arts. Yet, upon Marcus's death in 180 AD, Commodus's rule devolved into tyranny marked by megalomania, gladiatorial, spectacles, economic ruin, and assassinations that unraveled the stability of the five good emperors era, plunging Rome toward the chaos of the 3rd century. Historians like Cassius Dio paint Commodus as vain and unstable, renaming Rome Commodiana after himself and executing perceived threats, leading to his assassination in 192 AD. For Marcus, this wasn't a distant hindsight. He sensed the flaws: Commodus's impulsiveness, lack of discipline, and susceptibility to flattery, yet chose him as successor, adhering to dynastic tradition over adoptive meritocracy. This legacy failure haunted Marcus as a father and emperor. He couldn't instill Stoic virtues in his son, risking the empire's future on a flawed vessel. Doubt lingered. Had his absences on campaigns or leniency sown the seeds? Yet, from this profound disappointment, Marcus extracted lessons in acceptance and integrity, employing reflection, ethical resolve, learning from parental shortcomings, persistent adherence to duty, compassion toward imperfection, and a steadfast preservation of his core principles. This is our 6th and final failure story: how Marcus Aurelius learned from legacy missteps to affirm that true power lies in virtuous living, regardless of outcomes. To delve into the poignancy of this failure, picture Marcus in his final years, around 178–180 AD, on the Danube frontier. Commodus, at 17, joined him in camp, proclaimed co-emperor in 177 AD to secure succession amid wars and plague. Marcus invested deeply. Tutors like Galen and Pertinax schooled him, and he exposed Commodus to governance. But signs of trouble emerged. Commodus preferred luxuries over rigors, influenced by corrupt courtiers, and showed little affinity for Stoic restraint. Marcus's decision to break the adoptive tradition, unlike his predecessors who chose capable heirs, stemmed from paternal hope and political pressure for bloodline continuity. This choice proved disastrous. Commodus's 12-year reign eroded reforms, debased currency, and alienated the Senate, marking the end of Pax Romana. For Marcus, it was a failure of education and foresight. His philosophy, so effective personally, faltered in transmission. In Meditations Book 1, he reflects on his own upbringing, thanking mentors for virtues, implicitly contrasting with Commodus's path. Self-reflection pierced him. He questioned his methods. Was absence during wars the culprit? Reflection taught acceptance of limits. He couldn't control another's soul. By staying silent on public criticisms, not forcing Commodus into molds, he let karma unfold. Recognizing that actions bear their fruits independently, ethics guided Marcus through this paternal quandary. He could have disinherited Commodus, risking Zivilstrafe, or imposed harsher disciplines verging on cruelty. Instead, he upheld justice and kindness, granting Commodus responsibilities to foster growth without coercion. In Book 6, Let Thy Principles Be Brief and Fundamental, Marcus's ethics demanded he act as a model, not a manipulator leading by example in virtue, hoping it would inspire. This moral stance turned potential regret into dignified resolve, preserving the empire's immediate stability, even if long-term peril loomed. Learning from the shortcomings was introspective and adaptive. Marcus acknowledged errors, over-optimism in heredity, underestimating environmental influences like sycophants. He learned that virtue isn't inherited, but cultivated daily, refining his philosophy to emphasize personal responsibility. Stoicism views legacies as illusion. All that is in accord with thee, O universe, is in accord with me. From Book 4. By analyzing his approach, more guidance, less indulgence, he gleaned wisdom for humanity. Focus on your conduct, not controlling successes. Persistence in duty remained unwavering, even sensing flaws. Marcus fulfilled his role as father emperor, co-ruling with Commodus, enacting laws like the Lex de Imperio to define powers. His duty extended to the state's welfare, persisting in preparations despite forebodings. Epictetus's echo resounded. It is not things that disturb men, but their judgments about them. Marcus persisted because abandoning hope would betray virtue. He invested until the end, co-authoring triumphs like the Column of Marcus Aurelius, symbolizing shared legacy. Compassion softened this persistence. He extended mercy to Commodus's youthful follies, understanding human frailty. In Book 9, men exist for the sake of one another. Teach them then, or bear them, rather than condemnation. Marcus bore patiently, offering guidance with empathy, viewing his son not as failure, but as a soul in progress. This compassion fostered personal peace, turning paternal disappointment into broader humanity. Above all, Marcus preserved his essence, refusing to let this failure tarnish his Stoic identity. Commodus's potential waywardness didn't lead to despair or compromise. Marcus stayed true, meditating on impermanence. Soon thou wilt have forgotten all things. Soon all things will have forgotten thee. From Book 7. He didn't abandon principles for expediency. Adopting another heir might have saved the empire, but it would fracture his integrity. This preservation ensured his power endured through meditations, outlasting Commodus's follies. Marcus's succession crisis didn't negate his achievements. It underscored Stoicism's timelessness. The empire survived initially, and his writings inspired generations. In contemporary life, disappointing children, failed mentorships, or crumbling legacies, his lessons on power. Reflect. What can you control in others' paths? Uphold ethics. Guide without force. Learn. Adjust approaches humbly. Persist. Commit to your role. Show compassion. Accept imperfections. Preserve essence. Let outcomes not define you. Thus, legacy failures become profound teachings, affirming that your virtue is the ultimate inheritance. As we conclude this journey through Marcus's transformations, carry forward. Every failure, even in legacy, is a forge for eternal strength. Are you prepared to leave a mark through character alone? As we reach the end of this epic journey through the life of Marcus Aurelius, let's pause and reflect on the profound transformations we've witnessed. From the devastating sweep of the Antonine Plague that tested his leadership amid unimaginable loss, to the intimate grief of family deaths that could have shattered his spirit. From the brutal early defeats in the Marcomannic Wars that challenged his strategic acumen, to the stinging betrayal of Avidius Cassius that probed the depths of trust. From the chronic health struggles that eroded his physical form, to the heartbreaking succession crisis with Commodus that imperiled his legacy, Marcus faced failures that would crush ordinary souls. Yet, in each crucible, he didn't merely survive, he alchemized adversity into power. Through the Stoic lenses of self-reflection, unwavering ethics, learning from mistakes, persistence in duty, compassion for all, including enemies, and himself, and the fierce preservation of his inner essence, Marcus turned every setback into a testament of resilience. These 6 pivotal moments aren't relics of ancient history. They're timeless blueprints for your own life, proving that failure isn't the end. It's the forge where true strength is born. Consider the common threads weaving through these stories. In the plague's shadow, Marcus reflected on mortality's indifference, upholding ethics by aiding the afflicted and learning to adapt systems for survival, all while persisting in leadership with compassion that unified his people. His family losses demanded he confront attachment's pain, ethically honoring memories through charitable acts, learning detachment's wisdom, and persisting in duty without letting grief erode his core. The Marcomannic defeats forced tactical reflection, ethical reforms in warfare, rigorous learning from errors, unyielding persistence on the front lines, and compassionate treaties that turned foes into allies. Avidius's rebellion invited introspection on trust, ethical forgiveness over vengeance, lessons in vigilance, dutiful diplomacy, and compassion that healed divisions. His health woes required reflecting on mind-body duality, ethical endurance without indulgence, learning balance amid limits, persiste gouvernance despite frailty, and self-compassion that preserved his philosophical soul. Finally, Commodus's flaws prompted reflection on legacy's illusions, ethical guidance without coercion, learning the limits of influence, persistent investment in upbringing, compassionate acceptance of human imperfection, and an uncompromised essence that outlived temporal failures. At the heart of it all lies Stoicism's enduring wisdom, the dichotomy of control. Marcus wrote in Meditations Book 12, "All things are mutual. The whole universe is change. Thy life is but a point." He understood that external events, plagues, losses, defeats, betrayals, illnesses, even wayward heirs are beyond our grasp. But our responses are ours to command, by staying silent, not in passivity, but in mindful restraint. He allowed karma, the natural order of consequences, to work its course. This isn't resignation, it's empowerment. Reflection sharpens the mind. Ethics anchors the soul. Learning builds wisdom. Persistence fuels progress. Compassion connects us, and preserving essence ensures we remain unbroken. Marcus didn't conquer the world. He conquered himself, emerging from failures with a power that echoed through centuries, influencing leaders from Frederick the Great to modern thinkers like Ryan Holiday. Why does this matter to you? Here in the 21st century, our world mirrors ancient Rome's chaos. Pandemics rage. Personal tragedies strike without warning. Professional setbacks ambushes, betrayals, erode trust. Health battles wear us down, and legacies slip through our fingers. You might face a job loss that feels like a military rout, a relationship's end akin to familial grief, or a health diagnosis echoing Marcus's frailty. In these moments, ask, are you prepared? Prepared not to avoid failure. That's impossible, but to transform it. Start with reflection. Journal your setbacks, as Marcus did, questioning what you can control. Uphold ethics. Act with integrity. Even when it's hard, learn relentlessly. Dissect mistakes for growth. Persist in your duties. Show up daily. Virtue as your guide. Extend compassion. Forgive others and yourself. Turning wounds into wisdom. Preserve your essence. Don't let failures redefine you. Let them refine you. This is your call to action. Embrace Stoicism not as ancient lore, but as living practice. Read meditations and let Marcus's words be your daily armor. When failure strikes, stay silent amid the storm. Observe, reflect, respond with purpose. Let karma work, knowing that every action ripples back. Build your inner citadel, unassailable by fate's arrows. Imagine the power you'll wield. Resilience in crisis, clarity in confusion, strength in suffering. Marcus proved it's possible. Now, it's your turn. As he reminded himself in Book 4, thou hast power over thy mind, not outside events. Realize this, and thou wilt find strength. Go forth. Turn your crushing failures into power, and live as the philosopher-king of your own life. The empire of your potential awaits. Are you prepared to claim it?